Look, on the Hoosier Sun, we cater to our audience, okay? We know what you guys want to listen to, and we know you don't want to listen to another football podcast after five
No.
straight Indiana losses. It clearly has made Matt a little emotional, and has thrown him into a coughing fit. This Indiana team has a lot of issues. We're going to talk about IU football and the direction of this program later on. But the vast majority of this thing will be talking about Indiana men's basketball starting exhibition play on Saturday. We're going to give you a what to watch for primer from all three of us. What are we paying attention to on Saturday afternoon? Which players are we looking to see make a difference and maybe show a little progress over the course of the offseason? And so much more. There's so much more here on episode 269 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Monday, October 24th, 2022. I am your host, Nathan Christian. Here with me tonight are my normal co-hosts, Matt Lukens, as well as Charlie Mason, our Boots on the Ground Indiana HQ contributor. Matt, our first exhibition game comes Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern tip against Marian University. We're not going to preview that team, okay, you guys? We're going to focus on Indiana only here, but fun facts, they are the Knights. They actually opened their season on Thursday night versus St. Xavier in an actual sanctioned NAIA basketball game. So they'll have a game under their belts before the exhibition one in Assembly Hall on Saturday.
So they're only on 1 day's rest.
Yeah, 2 games in 3 nights. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. NAIA school, dark blue and gold colors. Indianapolis is where it's located. Former Iowa Butler and Evansville head coach Todd Licklider used to coach at Marian. Indianapolis Colts wide receiver of former days, Krishawn Hogan, used to play at Marian. They are third in the preseason NAIA poll behind Indiana Wesleyan and Grace College, and guard Christian Harvey is preseason all NAIA. But Matt, we are looking to focus on Indiana University. There are a lot of things to choose from here when you turn on your stream Saturday afternoon. What are you looking for as far as Indiana basketball in that first game? There's a wide variety of topics to pick from, and you get the first choice.
Look, I'm going to take the easiest one because I'll be there in person to see it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
apologize. I'm
I'll
sorry.
be
Okay.
driving up. I'll be driving up and going to the
I'll
end.
be streaming it. Okay.
You will be streaming it. Yes, you're the only person in this podcast streaming.
Yes,
But no,
correct.
three-point shooting for sure. I think clearly, I think that's something that'll translate because the guy is going to get open shots. I want to see if they can make the open shots, regardless if it's a scrimmage. It's still the first game that they've all played together. This iteration of the Hoosiers playing against another opponent, they're going to be nervous. There's going to be some jitters. There's going to be some butterflies. Who's going to hit the shots when there's butterflies? That's going to tell me a lot more about this team than anything else that goes on. Who plays, who, what the lineups look like. It could be completely different come game one. But people that make shots keep making shots from game one till the end of the season. So who's going to be the people that step up into that role that now Parker Stewart has left a void in Indiana? And who's going to be the guy that's going to be the volume 3-point shooter? Is it going to be Miller Kopp? Is it going to be Tamar Bates? Is it going to be Anthony Leal? Is it going to be Trey Galloway somehow finds a 3-point shot? Who is it going to be that comes in and starts shooting 3-pointers for this team consistently? That's something we'll definitely get a look at on Saturday, especially if you not even just people that make shots, but who is getting the shots on the perimeter. It's going to tell you a lot more about how the Hoosiers are going to play the rest of the season.
Yeah, and when you think about that, Matt, are you looking more for the quality of shots that Indiana gets, the quantity of shots, or the percentage, how early they're coming in the shot clock? And I'm curious to get Charlie's point of view on this as well. But Matt, you go first here. What angle are you looking for as far as the 3-point shooting?
I think we just talked about it. They play one game on Thursday and then they play on Saturday. I'm talking about Wesleyan.
Yeah. Marian.
No, Wesleyan. No, we talked about Indiana Wesleyan. Okay. Marian before, right?
They're rivals, yeah.
So I feel like Indiana's going to get some good looks just regardless. One, because of the talent gap, but two, because they're going to be probably a little bit exhausted the first game of the year that they play, and then they play on 1 day's rest. So they're going to be pretty gassed. but who is taking the shots and what are the quantity of shots taken is going to be my question, because I feel like Indiana is going to run some things, just not just to put things on tape, but just to kind of try things out. So they could feed it to Trace Jackson Davis every single play. He could have 80 points by the end of the game. That could happen. But that's not going to happen because they're going to run sets for other people, just kind of see how people are doing it. And the quantity of, not quality, but the quantity of sets ran for people are going to tell me who they're kind of looking at as the season goes forward and going into the first game to kind of be those third, fourth, and fifth guys to race and Trace and Xavier Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, I mean, 3-point shooting to you. I know you made a comment out of Hoosier Hysteria when you were there that the women's team, and you were spot on with this, could give the men's team a few pointers as far as the 3-point shooting is concerned. But I know you've played a little basketball. Just from your thought process, what aspect of 3-point shooting are you looking forward to? Because, there's a lot to pick from besides who shoots it, when do they shoot it, how accurately do they shoot it? Is it early in the shot clock, late in the shot clock, all sorts of things to pick from.
I think the quality of the shot, I'm going to go against Matt on this one. I'm going quality of the shot. I think that's the most important thing for the Hoosiers. Look, IU knew coming into this season that 3-point shooting was one of the weakest points that this team had leaving last season. And when Woodson sees a problem, he fixes it. I think that coming out of this game early, we're going to see a couple 3-point shots earlier on in the shot clock. I think Woodson's going to prioritize establishing that 3-point shooting early. So I'm going early in the shot clock.
Yeah, all right.
And I'm looking for plays drawn, set up for the 3-point ball, quality shots with a lot of time left on the clock. So
yeah, I love hearing that. I don't want to see a single post touch for Trace Jackson Davis, frankly. I mean, we can save that for later on in the season. We know what that looks like. Charlie, let's focus on a different point of view here. Instead of 3-point shooting, is there another aspect of this game you're paying attention to Saturday afternoon against Marian? Because my gosh, there is so much to go through here.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the setup for the 3-point shot. So that backcourt, looking at the relationship that the guards are gonna develop early on, especially with CJ Gunn and Hood coming in, the freshmen, the youngsters really getting some time on the court. I think they're gonna have an opportunity to in the exhibition, especially. I think Woodson's gonna
I hope so.
Time. Maybe see what they're made of. But I think the setup, bringing the ball up the court, kind of what that's going to look like this year versus past years. And then obviously not using Trace Jackson as much in this exhibition as maybe some diehard Trace Jackson Davis fans want to see. I'm really looking forward to them working the perimeter instead of driving in. So
it's a 3 p.m. tip-off Saturday on BTN Plus. Of course, as Matt and Charlie, in their case, they will be at Assembly Hall for this contest. Of course, I know all of us agree with this. We don't want to see any injuries on the basketball court Saturday. That's the biggest thing, frankly. You can't have any of those, especially with that first game, big game of the non-conference season coming up at Xavier right around the corner. It's funny you mentioned the combination there in the backcourt, Charlie. I totally agree because Indiana, guys, we talked about this on our podcast a week or two ago. I mean, the backcourt is completely transformed to what we saw really in the last year of Archie Miller. It's not Al Durham and Rob Finney and Christian Lander anymore. It's a completely different set of characters with Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino. And will it be, I know, how much Tamar Bates will we see? How much Anthony Leal will we see? What role will CJ Gunn play back there as far as the point and the shooting guard positions are concerned? If you qualify Trey Galloway as a guard, which I think most people do, what's his role on the team? That's what I'm paying attention to. Who's going to start, right? I mean, no one really knows the answer to this. It could be Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino in the backcourt. But then you have some questions. Okay, is it Miller Kopp or is it Race Thompson? And what happens to Tamar Bates, who's gotten a lot of publicity here in the offseason as far as being an emerging threat in the Big Ten? I'm going to be paying attention to that. The 4 freshmen, let's go real quick. I mean, Matt, if I asked you of the 4 true freshmen to take the court on Saturday, which one are you going to pay the most attention to? What's your answer?
I think the easy answer here would be Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yeah,
but
it's not my answer.
I'm not gonna take
Not
that
my
answer.
Nope.
I'm gonna go Malik
Yeah.
Renew
Yeah.
for my answer. I think if he can have a role on this team, it makes Trace Jackson's Davis life infinitely easier.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Again, like the last couple years, it's been when Trace leaves the court, Indiana instantly goes in the negative. Instantly. The last 3 years, I've seen it happen. It's just when Trace is not on the court, the team is 20% of what it was previous to him leaving the court. That's a lot for him to shoulder. And again, they might still be 20% of the team that Trace is when he leaves the court. That's how good Trace is. And we're going to talk about him being Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Tony.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, a superhero on the basketball court here in a bit. But if Renew can at least be a positive factor from that position when Trace gets off the court, I feel like this team actually has depth where the bench might actually be more of a positive than our starting lineup. Like our strength actually might end up being our bench, putting the 5 players in, getting our starters rest, not only just getting them rest throughout the game, but actually quality minutes from the bench. I mean, the players that are coming off the bench, I talked about this on a podcast with a bunch of other national guys. And they were saying to me, Indiana's got 3 all Big Ten like quality starters coming off the bench at least. Like Tamar Bates, if he doesn't start, will be a Big Ten quality starter somewhere. Jordan Geronimo, we haven't even talked about him, would be a Big Ten starter somewhere else. And then Renew probably will be a Big Ten quality starter somewhere. And that's not even if Jalen Hood-Schifino doesn't start. And that's not even if Miller Kopp ends up coming off the bench. Like the bench unit is going to have quality guys on it that should be starters somewhere else. So it's up to, again, Mike Woodson and the rest of the staff to get Renew ready and kind of see how he's doing. And if he can actually go, and he can go with the big guys and with people that are going to be 2, 3, 4 years older than him, grown men. If he can compete with them, then this team's ceiling, I think, increases just by that little bit.
Crazy to think that just over 6 months ago, Malik Reneau committed to Indiana. And now the question is, in all likelihood, unless there's something we don't know about that's been undisclosed, Reneau will be wearing the candy stripes and the cream and crimson uniform on Saturday at Assembly Hall. Charlie, how about you? When you think about the 3 other true freshmen that could take the floor on Saturday, Caleb Banks, CJ Gunn, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, which one of those are you looking forward to watching the most against Marian on Saturday afternoon?
I'm excited for CJ Gunn.
Yeah.
I think he's the solution that IU has been waiting for a while. He's averaged, he had 37%. He shot 37% on 3-pointers his senior year of high school, which is really something that I think the Hoosiers are going to need coming into a season that calls for 3-point shots being made. I know that it's something he was working on in the off season. He worked with the Hoosier staff to start building that college level 3-point shot. And I think that if he can bring it on Saturday and show up and get some playing time from Woodson, he can prove to not only the Indiana Hoosier fans, but he can gain the trust of the other guards, the other teammates he has. So instead of Trace Jackson Davis posting all the time, maybe he kicks it out and CJ Gunn hits a 3. That's the relationship I'm looking for from this Hoosier team. I don't know if it's going to become apparent on Saturday that that's what the future of the program or the future of this season needs. But because I don't know how great the team they're playing is, but I think that definitely CJ Gunn will get some playing time, and we're going to see early on that this kid's no joke. I called him a kid. He's my age. This 3-point shooter is going to make some threes rain early on.
Yeah, I believe, it was, we talked about Malik Reneau just a moment ago. CJ Gunn committed to Indiana on February 7th, 2021, over a year and a half ago. And finally, he'll be able to wear that IU basketball uniform. In case you forgot, 24/7 director of basketball scouting, Jerry Meyer, said that CJ Gunn, who 6'5", by the way, folks, solid size, smooth athleticism, strong leaper off 2 feet, on his pull-up jumper, and which pays off on his pull-up jumper and his rebounding. Prefers to go right. It's a good three-point shooter, average ball handler and passer, but is a conscientious defender. That's exactly the kind of thing that could end up being a really quality threat as far as Big Ten play. And my answer to this question is also not Jalen Hood-Schifino, folks. Caleb Banks has been my answer to this question for a while. I am really looking forward to seeing Indiana have a quality NBA body. Maybe not this next season, but eventually 2-3 years down the road at the wing position. That's been a glaring weakness for IU basketball for many, many, many years since, I don't know, you can talk about
OG.
Oladipo. Okay, OG. Yes, you're right. Oladipo, OG Anunoby, a little bit after that. Indiana's tried with a few different pieces. They just haven't been solutions at the three position, at the small forward position. Caleb Banks, maybe a little big for a three, but whatever. He's going to be out on the wing. And I need him to get some quality playing time Saturday, as well as the second exhibition game, to see what he can bring to the table, see what the foundation is for Caleb. Of course, you hear some of the murmurs, a lot of, in Indiana's pro day that took place a few weeks ago, there were some murmurs about Caleb Banks standing out to some degree. Again, first year expectations, definitely want to temper them. But as far as an exhibition game against Marian on Saturday, that's exactly the kind of thing I want to see as Indiana takes the floor for the first time in a competitive basketball game. Matt, then there's that middle, right? We talk about the stars and the true freshmen. Then there's that middle, and it's Anthony Leal and it's Logan Duncombe, and it's a little bit of, I don't know, I think you can qualify Jordan Geronimo and Tamara Bates more as stars, but with this middle of Leal and of Duncombe, I mean, you can also maybe include Trey Galloway in here. What's the expectation for those three guys here in the first two exhibitions, as well as that regular season opener against Morehead State?
Again, can they shoot the three? Because if they can,
is it that simple?
It is actually really that simple. Like if they can spread the floor, they're going to work their way into this rotation. Again, this team desperately needs somebody to help, give space to our great players, right? And if they can do that, they're gonna get minutes. Like I'm sorry, they just are. I mean, they might not be starters, but they're gonna get minutes, and they're gonna be put into situations in which they need to perform. So can they do that? Has their game grown at all? Like, for instance, does Leo look quicker? Does Duncombe look like not like a stick figure anymore? Does he got some meat on his bones? Can he move? Is he still nimble? His post touch is probably still great. Can he spread the floor like we've seen him do before, either at the Hoosier areas or just in warm-up? And then can Trey Galloway actually shoot the ball? I legitimately think that Trey Galloway would be an all-conference guy if he just had a three-pointer. I don't think that's a crazy assumption. He'd be not only a quality starter, he'd be a star for this team. He'd be up there.
He does everything else.
He does everything else really, really well, except for shoot the three. And that's funny because in high school, his sophomore year of high school, he was a 36% three-point shooter. So he's done it. He's done it before for Culver Academy. Like he's had it before. It's just there's something about his motion. He's rushing his shot. It looks good off his hands. It just doesn't go in. So hopefully this summer he's worked on that to kind of get himself more game time, because he's a guy that, if he works his way into the rotation as a able shooter, I'm not talking 40%, okay? I'm talking like 35, 36, right? And he's a reliable shooter. All of a sudden, this team, it could be a national title contender just because he can work himself into probable minutes, because his defense is fantastic. He's a good rebounder. He's another facilitator on the floor. Can you imagine having basically three point guards on the floor at one time? Like, he's such a good player. I mean, love watching him. It's just, again, Nathan, shooting, please.
But is there a very, very discounted Draymond Green type role for Trey Galloway on this team, where maybe you don't even have him shoot the basketball, defend, rebound, steal, assist, do all of that?
Maybe in the second unit. I think in the second unit, there's a role for him there, but in the first unit, like the first unit's gonna have Trace. Now, we're not really going to rely on him to shoot the ball. I don't want to rely on Race to be a shooter, right? Like he can be a shooter, but it's kind of like I don't. If you have two guys out there that can't shoot, then you really need three guys that can. And I don't know if I want Race to be that third guy. So floor spacing wise, I just don't see him working well with the first unit. Second unit's a whole different question because I feel like we'll have a bunch of guys that could be borderline decent shooters. And then if Logan Duncombe can work himself into that equation, all of a sudden you can go 4 out with Logan Duncombe outside and have, Trey be the guy that can't shoot. That's possible. But again, that'll be him leading the second unit and as opposed to the first unit. So I don't really see a Draymond Green role for him on the team.
Makes sense there. Charlie, I guess it's about time we talked a little bit about, the star of the show, Trace Jackson Davis, and, his long time, his long time, I don't even want to call it Robin. That's such a criticism of Race Thompson. His partner in crime, Race Thompson, that's what he is. And of course, Indiana's starting and frequently snubbed point guard Xavier Johnson. As far as Indiana's 3 so-called stars that have at least played before at Indiana University, Charlie, Xavier Johnson, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis. I can't imagine they'll have too much on their plate Saturday. How excited are you to watch those 3 guys against Marian?
Here's the thing. I think that that obviously they're going to be in the starting lineup. I don't think anybody else doubted that. I think they're going to get taken out halfway through the first quarter. We'll see them sprinkled in a little bit in the second quarter. I don't think we're going to see any of them in the third quarter, and I think we're going to get a show from them in the fourth quarter. I don't think all 3 of them are going to be out on the court altogether in the second half, if I'm being honest. I think it's going to come down to the quarters. I'm so sorry. In the first half, second half. In the second half, I really don't see them.
Men's basketball needs quarters. To be fair,
they kind of do.
The women's game does it right. To be perfectly honest with you, they've implemented quarters. We're not going to get into it, but soon it needs to happen.
I see all 3 of them on the court for maybe 5 minutes combined. Together. I'm super excited to see a couple tricks, couple alley-oops. I think there's going to be a little bit of a spark, a little showmanship coming from these 3 specifically. Okay. But more than anything, I think they're going to come out together strong, playing fundamental basketball, which is what Woodson's all about, is getting the ball in the hoop, playing some solid defense, and I think this game is kind of going to be about these 3 guys stepping up and working in all the different rotations individually. So I think Xavier Johnson's going to get a shot to work with Duncombe down low. I think we're all going to have opportunities to work with different facets and different rotations of this IU basketball team on their own, kind of help the team grow, teach them a little bit. But I really don't think that all 3 of them are going to be together at the same time against this team. So.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, just stay healthy, guys. Just all I can ask for, really. I will defend Xavier Johnson just a little bit here. I understand if you don't want to put him on like the Bob Cousy watch list or whatever, but I'm not sure. Like I feel like a lot of folks who are voting for preseason accolades and things like that just look at Xavier Johnson's numbers and remember some of his bad games from early last season and just write that off as some kind of basic replacement level point guard. I mean, this is someone who averaged 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists in Big Ten in 22 Big Ten games last season. When you incorporate the Illinois and Michigan wins from the Illinois and Michigan wins, as well as the Iowa game from the Big Ten tournament, and he was someone who also shot 37.5% from 3 in those Big Ten games. Like, let's use a little bit. Let's do a little bit of work, guys, before we just decide to ignore Xavier Johnson on everything imaginable. He's going to have that as a chip on his shoulder.
I hope it's
at least the
right
big game, maybe not right away. Yeah,
I hope the list of names, and then like he puts the stickers like stars next to the teams that have the guys that got above him on it. On the schedule, just so he knows, just got the little bit more of motivation. Absolutely. Not that he needs any more motivation.
Well, and I mean, he doesn't even get any lifetime achievement award here, which sometimes that's what preseason polls are. It's like, all right, who's the guy that's done the most in his career going into this upcoming season? I mean, he's averaged double figures in the points category for 4 straight seasons across Pitt and Indiana. No one's giving him credit for that. But hey, look, if anything, that's going to make him an even more inspired player, especially when you get into those really high quality games against Xavier and Kansas and North Carolina and Arizona and Big Ten play. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to announce himself loudly as Indiana's point guard, ideally for a top, say what you want, at least a preseason top 15 team. We're going to talk a little bit more about Trayce Jackson-Davis here in just a moment, as he got some good news earlier today. But first, let's talk about our Indiana HQ and the Hoosier Sound podcast poll, where we asked all of you, what are you looking forward to the most during Indiana's exhibition versus Marian on Saturday? And right now, it's a dead heat. The same percentage of voters, 44.7% of the folks out there, say 3-point shooting and the 4 true freshmen is what they're looking forward to, are what they're looking forward to the most on Saturday. I've never seen a dead heat before. So it's a little bit of a historic moment here on the Hoosier Sound podcast. 7.9% of you are paying most attention to who's in the starting lineup. We did get a comment here from Showalter at Show2J that said, hey, can Trayce Jackson-Davis shoot? And what is he looking forward to out of Race Thompson as well? So look, the folks know what they want. Can't wait for Indiana to take the floor on Saturday against Marian. As we go ahead and talk a little bit more about Trayce Jackson-Davis in a moment, we will take some time to recognize who won the week this past week in IU sports. And wow, there are a ton of folks we can pick from, but we're actually going to tip our cap to the Indiana University volleyball team, who they're doing what we kind of want Indiana football to do. And that is, even though there are other powerhouses in your conference, you take care of business against teams you're supposed to take care of business against. And then you go on the road on Friday night and upset number 25 Michigan, which is exactly what the Indiana volleyball team did. They're 5-5 in conference play. They've put together 3 straight Big Ten wins for the first time since 2014. And I tell you, folks, it's a very underrated sport when you think about the level of competitiveness and the environments all across the Big Ten. Indiana University volleyball is getting a piece of that here with back-to-back road wins against Michigan and Michigan State over the weekend to, again, get back to 500 in conference play. Just a reminder, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. A reminder, folks, this part's important. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Matt, Trayce Jackson-Davis was named as a preseason All-American earlier on Monday. It's back-to-back seasons where TJD was named a preseason All-American. The one Hoosier who did it before Trayce Jackson-Davis was Cody Zeller. So it's been almost 10 years since Jackson-Davis did it last year, and now he's backed it up this past season. Jackson-Davis provided comment to the Associated Press saying it's not really about individual accomplishments. The exact quote is, I think I have set the stone of my individual legacy, being an All-American, doing all of those things, but those don't really matter if you don't win something here. Winning is a big thing here. So winning a national championship and also winning a Big Ten title, those are my 2 main goals this year. Matt, we talked a little bit about this beforehand. It's great Jackson-Davis is getting recognized as a preseason All-American. Do we really want him to be a postseason All-American? Because if he is, that means he's kind of doing everything. Do we want that?
No, that doesn't necessarily mean he's doing everything. That means he's just getting lauded for the attention that he brings to the team. I think that the AP voters, and especially the National Player of the Year voters, are smarter than to just be like, oh, this guy averages 27 points per game, but his team is 8-23. Like, let's vote him to, I don't think they just look at points per game and go, that guy deserves to be on the team. So I don't think he has to do everything for this team, and he can still be on that list because I do think that his production this year might go down. I
think it better, right?
I don't think he's going to average 18 points per game this year, but I think he might average more assists. He might average more blocks. He might average more rebounds this year. I think as a whole, his statistics are going to grow. It's just his points per game might shrink from 18, or I think it was almost 19, right? To like around 17 or 16 points per game. But I think that's because other guys in the team are going to step up and kind of share that scoring load. I'm hoping to see a bigger scoring jump from Grace Thompson.
Yep.
Especially if he can develop a three-point shot. I feel like that's going to affect his percentage and his 3-point or his points per game total a little bit more. I can see somebody like a Tamar Bates taking a 5 or 6 point jump this year. I can see somebody like a Miller Kopp taking a 2 or 3 point jump this year. All those points, all those shots get taken away from Trace, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to lose out in statistics because again, he can be a guy. They play an entry pass out. Okay, they don't. Let's say Xavier Johnson, him, run, pick and roll. He's rolling to the rim. He sees that 2 people are collapsing. He kicks it out to the corner. Somebody hits a 3-pointer. That's a very, very basic play. That's basic and simple basketball. But that's what Mike Woodson and how Mike Woodson probably wants Trace to play this year. And that's probably how this team is going to succeed. Again, because if they can make shots from the perimeter, all of a sudden that makes Trace's life so much easier. He's going to have the easiest year playing basketball in his entire life if Indiana can actually spread the floor and give him space. Because again, I think he's the best big in the league, not by far, but marginally he's the best big in the league. And I do think in theory, he can have the best team surrounding him out of all the bigs in the league. I mean, I like Cliff Murray at Rutgers. I like Hunter Dickinson at Michigan. I think that
Zach Edey's in that mix.
Zach Edey at Purdue. Heck, Michigan State could figure it out, and what's his name at Michigan State? We're just talking about him. Matty Sissoko could figure out Michigan State, right? These guys could be really good, but I think Trace could end up still having the best team that surrounds him, and therefore that makes him better this year, and probably gets him the individual accolades because he's the star and the leader of this team. If Indiana does go far and does what they're supposed to do this year and wins the Big Ten and is national title contenders, then Trace is going to be there at the end of the year, regardless of whether he averages 12 points per game or 18.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I see Tyler Wall out of Wisconsin's getting some pub too, as far as one of the better centers in the Big Ten. Charlie, I think there are 3 other guys on this team that could gain All-American status at the end of the year. I think those 3 guys are Xavier Johnson, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and Race Thompson. Of those 3 guys, which one do you think could actually get some postseason All-American buzz if everything goes right for IU basketball?
I think Race Thompson is the obvious of the 3 here. He's I don't want to say the sidekick to Trace Jackson Davis, but he's definitely he's partners in crime. You put it
just another weapon, right? It's another weapon alongside. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that the 2 of them working together in that post is going to be deadly. Matt talked about how this IU basketball team, if they're going to look good, is going to see Trace Jackson Davis lower his point total per game and kind of increase every other statistic. I think that his increase in assists I think that's going to go to Race Thompson. I think that they're kind of going to bounce off of each other. So while Trace Jackson Davis goes down, Race Thompson comes up, and the 2 of them kind of meet. I don't know if they'll be at the same level at the end of the season. That'll depend on how well Indiana does as a team as a whole. But I think that if Trace Jackson Davis can step up and lead this team deep into the NCAAs, I think that if he can get him, great positioning before March starts, that Race Thompson and Xavier Johnson honestly could become AP player. I think that they could also step up in a way that Trace Jackson did last year. So yeah,
get that All-American status. I'm sure casual Hoosier fans know that Race Thompson's playing time has consistently increased since he stepped onto Indiana's floor as the first commit of the Archie Miller era. But what you may not know is that on a per minute basis, Race Thompson has averaged more points per game and more and a higher field goal percentage per game and more assists. More points per minute, more assists per minute, as well as a higher field goal percentage each of his 4 years playing at Indiana. It's consistently increased from not only a volume standpoint, but an efficiency standpoint. So there is an argument there. I'm actually looking to Xavier Johnson. I did look at the Bob Cousy watch list released earlier today, and I was like, wow, there really aren't that many great point guards in college basketball. And when I see that, I say, look, hey, if Indiana runs into a rich vein of success where they're very successful in the Big Ten and where they're beating some quality non-conference teams, I actually could see Xavier Johnson as a guy that gets a first team all Big Ten nod, gets all-American consideration if Indiana is one of the top on that 3-seed line, 4-seed line of the NCAA tournament. He's gonna be so motivated all season, and I think he's got the type of play style that could really translate into an All-American season. Matt, do you think it's Jalen Hood-Schifino or Race Thompson, or sorry, Xavier Johnson or Race Thompson, or do you think there's could be some consideration for Jalen Hood-Schifino as well?
I mean, I think Renew and Hood-Schifino could get.
Malik Reneau in this economy with the big forwards that Indiana has.
Yeah, I think he could make his way onto there if he actually plays well with the second unit, and Indiana's like a top 5 team in the country. He's gonna get the recognition, right? And then I honestly think, really, I this might be crazy and out of left field for some people, but I think Tamar Bates could work his way onto this too.
Oh, okay.
Again, he's a guy that his skill set would be incredible if he's able to produce at a high level. Again, he's a guy that can create his own shot. He's a 3-pointer shooter that can, spread the floor. And he was really close last year at a couple incredible steals. He's a guy that can make some game breaking plays on defense just with his quickness and his length. And so he's a guy that if he can put it all together this year, which I don't think is actually the craziest thing. I mean, we've talked about people putting it together for the last 4 years.
Sure.
This one is not that crazy, guys. He was a 5-star recruit last year. He had some up and downs his freshman year. These guys normally figure it out their sophomore, junior year. He's gonna figure it out eventually at Indiana, and this year could be the year. I think, especially with a lot of the we've talked about before, people trying to figure it out, but the onus is on them, right? Like they are the guy next to Trace that's supposed to carry the load.
Yes.
He doesn't have to, right? Tamar doesn't have to be that guy because the attention's already going to be focused on Xavier Johnson. It's already going to be focused on Race Thompson. He's that fourth guy. He can sit back there and become a game changer for this team. I would not be surprised to see Indiana have 3, 4, or 5 people on the AP All-American list for either freshmen or
top 3 teams,
just top 3 teams.
Defense.
Like I can totally see a world where Indiana has 2 guys on the second team, 1 guy on the first team, a National Player of the Year, and Tamar Bates on the third team. That is not crazy for me. And then have 2 freshmen on the All-American team. Like this team is deep enough; they could just start running over people. Like we see if we see IU go to Lawrence and beat Kansas and Lawrence. By the way, I think they lost to Illinois in a secret scrimmage the other day. That's
not so secret, is it?
Not so secret, yeah. If we can go in and beat them, that's a nationally ranked game. If we can go to Vegas and beat Arizona, if we start the year like 12-1 in the non-conference or whatever, like all of a sudden this team goes from being top 15 to top 3, top 4, right? And that those teams normally get multiple guys onto each list, and I'm super excited for this year, but I'm kind of worried at the same time because I haven't been this excited for a season since the last year of Tom Crean. So
you gotta commit, and we know how that ended, right? He was no longer the coach. So Indiana has a lot to think about, a lot to digest going into this exhibition versus Marian on Saturday. Regardless of what happens, it does not count in the results. It does not count in the computers. And what does matter most, if you ask me, is just that all 13 scholarship players come out of it healthy and for the better going into Exhibition 2 on the following Thursday night, and then Indiana season opener against Morehead State. We're going to give you a full season preview for IU men's basketball before that regular season opener. We're not going to do it before the exhibition game just yet. So you can keep your eye out for that as we get into full-on basketball mode here on the Hoosier Sound. We do have some football to discuss, just a little. Indiana on Saturday went into Rutgers and started fast. They accomplished that goal. And then they completely imploded, losing to Rutgers 24-17. Of course, Indiana got 3 points really at the end of the game when it was pretty much out of reach. It was basic, Rutgers put together 24 straight points. It was pretty clearly Connor Bazelak's worst game as Indiana's starting quarterback through 8 games. Indiana's 3-5. It's a 5-game losing streak. Jalen Lucas is fun. What an awesome kick return he had to start the game. Of course, he had a nice reception later in the second half as well. Great first offensive drive for Indiana, and then it really, really spiraled out of control. Charlie, Indiana does reach their bye week again at 3-5. There's a lot to discuss here, but I think this is the low point for IU football as far as this 2022 season is concerned. It's a far cry from the emotions from that season opening win against Illinois.
Yeah, I said that this was a must-win game for the Hoosiers,
Yeah.
And it definitely was to keep the season hopes alive.
As far as the bowl game,
as far as the bowl game, and this, the result definitely kind of speaks to Indiana's season as a whole. Starting off strong and then fizzling out as the game continues. I think that I don't know what IU needs to fix. You could say offense, but it's a little too broad. I don't know. There's so many things that aren't working with this team right now. And if I'm Tom Allen, I don't know where to start. So.
Yeah, and you can even argue Indiana got some bodies back on Saturday. AJ Barner played, Jalen Williams played. Indiana's had DJ Matthews back in the fold for a couple of weeks. Cam Jones has been out, but I mean, it's a roster of 100 guys. Matt, how about you? If you are Tom Allen, you're trying to figure out where things go here after this bye week with Penn State on the horizon. It is a chance to record a pretty hallmark win as far as Indiana football is concerned, with Penn State coming to your house, but with the bowl game clearly out of reach, what's sort of the mindset here for Indiana now over the final 4 games?
I've had a great day, Nathan. Thanks for asking. I got Grand Champ back in Rocket League. I'm gonna get.
It's Diwali, Matt. Happy Diwali to you and Charlie. Big Indian, celebration there. Taylor Swift released her album over the weekend.
I know,
right?
it's been a great week. The one thing that did not, Arsenal tied. I guess that wasn't great, but that's whatever. The one thing for me that went terrible this weekend was having to sit there and watch that Rutgers game. And I can't help it, Nathan. But at the beginning of the year, I said we were going to go 3-9, and you know what? I'm going to look right. In fact, I said we were going to win our first 3 games and then lose 9 in a row.
You did, yeah.
And I love looking. I love being right. I love being smart. I love knowing all these things, and still I can't help it. But I am freaking furious. Okay, the way this team plays,
they lure you in.
It is infuriating. It's like, just roll over and die, please. Just roll over and give up. Because if you do that, then I have no expectations. But to be in the game, to try to win the game,
14 zip.
A 14 zip.
You had a fourth quarter lead against Maryland. You're down 7 at the end of 3 against Michigan.
This team, they get up off the mat only to get knocked out again. Like, just stay down. Just stay down. That's all I'm asking, is stay down. It's so infuriating as a fan to watch this. And honestly, all the Tom Allen teams that haven't ended with 8 wins in a year have done the same thing, okay? They get up off the mat, they try their hardest because they want to play for the head coach, which is admirable.
Efforts there.
At the end of the day, they cannot execute or out-execute their opponents. They can't. And I know there's a section of there's a large section of the fan base that would like Tom Allen to stick around.
Louder and louder.
But I can't help but feel like after last year's utter disappointment with a roster that, by the way, should have done much better than 2-10, regardless of Penix's health or not. And then this roster that they saw the holes going in this year, they saw the problems and refused to fix them. I can't help but say I don't think that Tom Allen is the right guy for the job. And I doesn't mean I don't like the guy. I think he brought a great change to Indiana football. I think the 2 seasons he had were fantastic. I even think he deserves a statue out front. But I also believe that in the age of 2022 Big Ten football, there are going to be coaches out there that you can go get and immediately improve your program. I do this like once every 2 weeks, but I'll go back to my soccer roots, which is that if you look at the Premier League, you can get some positive changes just by changing your head coach, right? You get the head coach out of there, you go and get a new head coach, a new vision, a new thoughts about the game, new regime, usually breathes life back into a lifeless program or a lifeless team. You can do that now in 2022 college football. You look around. We had this discussion last week. I know.
Yes, we did.
Ad nauseum.
We pointed out the basketball programs that are football.
Right.
Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse, Louisville.
You can go and get a new head coach and have success the next year. And I think Indiana can go and do that with this team that they have currently and go and do that next year. There's going to be a lot of talent that should return. You see people like Deshaun McCullough.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he had a competent head coach and a competent defensive coordinator and a competent offense, what he could do next year as a sophomore? Like somebody somewhere is going to look at this team and go, I can fix that. And I don't think Tom Allen is that guy. He's shown that, in fact, he's not the guy that can fix it. That's why we suck in second halves. That's why we can't finish games. That's why there's no clock management whatsoever at all under his leadership. But somebody can come in and fix this team, and I don't think that's going to be Tom Allen.
I think Tom Allen's the guy, Matt. I really do, because at the end of the day, all those talented players that you talked about and all those issues that, Charlie, you identified, right? Like, even those talented players, as much as we want to believe Indiana University is this fantastic, wonderful institution, those recruits committed to Tom Allen, I think, more so than the program. I think they bought into him and they bought into his mindset and they bought into his attitude. And again, I keep bringing this up, like the grass is always greener on the other side. And Tom Allen is the one person that was able to raise this program to relevancy across 2019 and 2020. However, I was one of two people there post-game asking Tom Allen questions, all right? Okay. Low-key insight to all of you who may not know this. You saw this with the video we posted over on Indiana HQ of an answer Tom Allen gave after the game, as far as everything's on the table to evaluate during this bye week, including the quarterback, which is great. Good for him. But, I was also in person at Memorial Stadium in 2019 from the press box where Indiana beat Rutgers 35-0. And I'll be honest with you, like, the 2022 Rutgers Scarlet Knights are not that much better than they were in 2019. I sat from that press box on Saturday and watched every single snap. And Rutgers is just as lousy as ever, okay? This is not a complex offense that they run. It is not an NFL defense full of capable players. I mean, the Rutgers team that Indiana beat in 2019 had Bo Melton, who's in the NFL, Isaiah Pacheco, who's starting for the Kansas City Chiefs. They had plenty of decent players on defense. They literally had no quarterback. But you can argue that Rutgers kind of still doesn't have a quarterback. The difference that I noticed sitting 6 feet from Tom Allen on Saturday post-game is that right now he's got a different tone to his voice and he's got a different look in his eye right now. Tom Allen's biggest strength was that he was IU football's most rabid supporter. Like, no one believed in IU football more than Tom Allen. And I think that specific thing is at a crossroads right now. Because I think as he watches every week pass by where Indiana's now lost 15 of their last 20 games since the start of the 2021 season, he's trying to grasp on to something. And it could be something as simple in 12 days where Indiana somehow trips up Penn State. I don't know. Maybe that's a shot in the arm this program needs, even if they end up winning 4 or 5 games. Maybe it's the rivalry game against Purdue at the end of the season where Indiana stops Purdue from making the Big Ten championship game. Whatever it is, there's something that Tom Allen needs to latch onto going into this upcoming offseason. And that's the goal here for this football team over the course of the next 4 weeks. Because I do think if Dolson moves on from Tom Allen, you will see an exodus of players putting their name in the transfer portal, including a lot of those guys that were part of the top 30 recruiting class that Allen brought in.
Nathan, but here's my question to you: that you talk about, this program being built on people buying into Tom Allen. That's fine. People can buy into a lot of things. I know. I just finished watching a Netflix documentary where people
Sure.
bought in on a cult. Right? You can buy in to a lot of things. You can convince people to do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you got to get results. Tom Allen hasn't even gotten the results, right? And if you want to talk about the 2 seasons that we did do,
well, he did get results.
But did we? Did
yes.
They finish? They didn't finish though.
Well, they didn't
finish those results because both of those bowl games should have been wins, both of them, and they found a way to throw both of them at the end of the year. So they
full body of work, though. The results were there.
But were they really?
Yes.
Were they really?
Yes,
were they actually really? That Indiana, those Indiana teams should have done much better than how their season not only ended, but even how their records look. Like a lot of those guys are in the NFL playing at like Peyton Hendershot's in the NFL. Like these guys are playing well at the next level. Like I feel like honestly, the talent on this team is not there, but also I feel like they aren't there because of the staff.
Yeah, and look, this Indiana team right now has a lot to think about. Penn State comes to town on a couple Saturdays from now. We'll see how that goes. Indiana then wraps up with a trip to Columbus, a trip to East Lansing, and then a home game against Purdue to wrap up the season. Can't wait to see which players step up. I mean, we've talked about Jalen Lucas, we've talked about Josh Henderson, we've seen Deshaun McCullough stand out. Looking forward to seeing Tywan Mullen and Jalen Williams finish the season with the flurry. Devon Matthews back there playing safety. Looking forward to seeing him there. Aaron Casey and Bradley Jennings have done a really good job at linebacker. It's just when Indiana hit a wall on Saturday, you could feel the air the air out of the balloon on the sideline. I mean, you really could. It's just the full roster. You kind of knew they were going through they were sort of rehashing a lot of their past problems, going through those flashbacks and cold sweats of the long stretches of poor play against Cincinnati, Nebraska, you name it. We'll see if Indiana explores a quarterback change. We'll see if Indiana explores some serious systematic changes going into these Final Four games. Lots to look ahead to. We're going to talk for a second about what Indiana can do maybe outside of the head coach to grab consistent future bowl game bids here in just a second. But first, it's time for a social media shout out. And Matt mentioned it just a moment ago. We're talking about Peyton Hendershot in the NFL. Well, he scored his first career NFL touchdown for the Cowboys against Detroit on Saturday, even with Dalton Schultz returning to the lineup. Hendershot scored in the fourth quarter at AT&T Stadium at Jerry World. What a story for the undrafted free agent who's been a key component of Dallas's strong start to the season. Hendershot not only played at IU, but an Indiana native as well, Tri-West High School. So it's good to see players like him doing big things down in Dallas. You also saw Kyle Schwarber make the World Series for the Philadelphia Phillies. Schwarber hitting leadoff every game for Philly, is a bit of a folk hero in Philadelphia. It's kind of the case wherever he goes. He had a monstrous home run off Yu Darvish in San Diego that hit the upper deck there. The native from Middletown, Ohio, doing big things here. 3 home runs in the NLCS, and his Phillies will take on the Astros in the World Series. That is Kyle Schwarber's second Major League World Series appearance. Of course, many of you remember him making the College World Series when he was at IU. Quick shout out to all of our social media channels. You can find us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram, where Matt, we are not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Indiana.HQ.
Exactly. You can find us there and follow us. We'll have all sorts of Instagram content for you as Charlie's our boots on the ground all season at men's basketball. Assembly Hall content is coming your way, folks. Speaking of you, Charlie, look, Indiana, ideally, gets to 6 wins every year in football and gets that postseason game, whether it's Tom Allen coaching this team, whether it's someone else. When you think about both sides of the football here, when you think about the environment of the Big Ten, the context of the Big Ten, USC and UCLA coming down the channel in a year or 2 years. I think it's in a year. 2 years. 2 years. Okay. What's Indiana's path to consistently making bowl games? What's the easiest journey for this IU football program to take for them to consistently get to 6 wins every single season?
Are we talking about like a game plan? Or are we talking about recruiting or?
Yeah, let's talk about all of it. What do you think? What do you think carries more weight? Do you think it's the preparation, the X's and O's, the coaching, or do you think it is a matter of, hey, what can they do to recruit better?
I think that there's a level of both that need to be taken into account in the next couple of years. I think the number one most important thing is a new playbook. A new playbook needs to show a lot more running. We have IU has running backs that are good, that can get yards when they're given opportunities, when they have an offensive line that gives them the holes they need to explode. Jalen Lucas, Josh Henderson, Sean Shivers, they're all great. Jalen Lucas has a couple more years left with this program, assuming he doesn't enter that transfer portal after this disappointing season. But I think that it starts there, giving the guys who are just as explosive as the Jalen Lucases of the IU football team, as the Josh Hendersons, who are kind of being held back by what this team, this offensive coordination is giving them. I think that it starts there. It starts with the plays, and it bleeds into recruiting, being able to get players on that offensive line that are able to make these plays and help the running backs. I don't think star power I think star power is overrated in college football. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that if you have a good team with well-rounded players that are able to execute with a playbook that suits what they're best at doing, you can make the top 25 AP poll. I really think you can. So if IU can figure out a way to not only create a playbook that highlights what their players are best at doing, first they have to recognize what they're best at doing, right? Because I feel like the fans are seeing more of that than the coaching staff is. And that's why there are so many complaints about this IU football team. But I think the second part definitely comes with recruiting. I don't know if position recruiting is the phrase I'm looking for, but definitely focusing more and putting more time into recruiting on the offensive and frankly the defensive line. I mean, pass rush has been I don't know if it's really been there this season. But if IU can step up offensively and defensively in terms of recruiting, I think that all you need is a playbook. And I don't know if that comes from a new head coach like Matt suggested, or if it comes from trusting the Tom Allen motto and kind of working that into a hybrid that also highlights the talents of the players. There's a lot of things IU can do, but I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, you see the Kansas States and the North Carolinas and the Kentuckys of the world, Syracuse making the top 25. None of those teams have a Heisman contender. Will Levis is an NFL draft prospect, but none of those guys you would say are really in the top of that Heisman race. And Indiana's had someone do that before in Tevin Coleman, and they fell very short of bowl contention, even in Tevin's Heisman season. Matt, how about you? You know, the path to 6 wins seems to be a long, arduous one for IU football. But, you know, if you're looking at some easy, low-hanging fruit for this program to get here over the next year so that you go into 2023 saying, all right, this is a 6-win football team, what are some of the changes they can make in order to get there?
I think Charlie hit on the head. I think recruiting. If you're not gonna like change the head coach, right? Yeah. One thing Tom Allen has done pretty well in Indiana is recruit.
It's true.
Transfer
portal too, right?
Transfer portal done pretty well as well. I don't think that's an issue. I think that'll stay, and I think the longer they do it, obviously, hopefully, the better the results they get. I think they already did one of the things that they needed to do going into the offseason, was getting rid of Aaron Hiller, right? Getting a new guy in there.
Darren Hiller,
yeah, Darren Hiller. I think I look at Walt Bell and I go, is he the right guy? I know you guys probably by the end of this podcast probably think I want every head coach change ever, and that might be the Arsenal fan in me.
Well,
but I do think that he's had a rough year. I could see him getting another year under his belt, but I think definitely when I look at their additions in the transfer portal this year, if I don't see 2, 3, 4 offensive linemen added to this roster, I'm gonna start really questioning whether. I mean, I'm already questioning whether Tom Allen's the guy or not, but I'm gonna really start banging the drum online, because it's if you can't sit there as a head coach and diagnose your team's problems, and me, armchair quarterback, can diagnose the problems, there is a problem. And it's not me, it's you. And then I would say one thing that hasn't been mentioned, we're talking about future past the 6 wins, kind of low-hanging fruit things that I can say. Getting out of the Big Ten East, trying to lobby and vie for an ability to actually have a living and breathing football program that isn't suffocated by 4 monsters of programs. I have pointed this out, by the way, to Ant, right? My other podcast co-host before. Now he makes the jokes all the time because he now realizes how Indiana because he was like, why is Indiana so bad constantly in football? I was like, do you understand where we are? Do you see this box we're putting? We're putting a prison cell for just
well, remember, Rutgers used to be a top 25 program in the Big East.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they came to the Big Ten and they haven't made the top 25 since.
The same issues there. And frankly, Maryland, they're running into a decent season this year, but Maryland's never been a team that's been in the upper tier of competitive college football because they know they can't run into a 10-win season.
It's not impossible. But it is
highly impossible. It is impossible.
It's not. No,
yes,
it's not impossible. No.
If three of your games are against Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, you got to win out. You got to win out.
No, but you can go 9-3 and then win a bowl game. A 10-win season is possible. Well, it's just highly improbable because of where we are and how college football works and the hand we've been dealt. Okay, so as a program, you need to get the Iowas of the world, the Wisconsins, the Nebraskas, to somehow go against their own best interests and vote for a better schedule, like getting rid of divisions, going towards a more randomized scheduled route where you kind of rotate the schedule, go more towards that so that as a program you have a chance to have certain seasons that are good, because Indiana's never going to be Ohio State. Okay, no matter how much money I tell the program to pump into the football program, that it's just not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But we can absolutely turn into Houston, right? That competes, goes 6-6 every other year.
Well, I think we were just talking about the Wake Forest, like Wake Forest, Kentucky. I've always said Kentucky and Purdue. Kentucky and Purdue can do it. We can. Indiana can do it. And also, again, compare Indiana to Indiana, right? Like for a stretch there under Kevin Wilson, Indiana was making bowl games. Indiana made bowl games during the Tom Allen tenure, right? There is a path, but you got to get there more consistently without losing to Rutgers by 10, and they scored 24 straight. And so, that's where I look at this. And frankly, for me, the offensive line, and again, I've said this again, Indiana football compared to Indiana football, offensive line has not been this big of an issue for IU football in a long time. Indiana's turned out NFL players as far as the linemen are concerned. You see Jason Spriggs making it to the pros, Dan Feeney making it to the pros, Wes Martin, Brandon Knight. I forgot Roger Saffold, who has made a very, very successful living doing it in the NFL. You can absolutely do that as far as Indiana University is concerned. Fix things up front, everything else takes off, branches off of that. Let's look at some other Big Ten teams, guys. It's time for our Big Ten pick of the week as far as the different point spreads and over-unders across college football, especially across the Big Ten this week. 5 games to choose from, all Big Ten versus Big Ten matchups. The primetime affair is Saturday night with Michigan State going to Ann Arbor, but the big noon kickoff is Ohio State going to Happy Valley. Again, ridiculous to me that the best game for the Big Ten takes place at noon. Charlie, let me ask you first the different games on the slate here. We also have Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa. Is there an upset pick, pick against the spread, an over-under selection that you like across the 5 Big Ten games going on this Saturday?
I do not like Michigan or Michigan State.
Oh, okay.
But I
Stay
think,
away.
yeah, I think that Michigan State, they always mess with Harbaugh. They always do. And I don't know if this is the year that they're going to upset Harbaugh, but I'm willing to put money on the fact that Michigan does not cover that spread.
21 and a
There
half.
is no way.
Ooh,
I'm saying it's a 10-point game max.
All right. Well, Michigan State is coming off a bye, but the Wolverines are as well. So you're saying even with the game under the lights there in Ann Arbor, take the Spartans to cover 21 and a half. Matt, how about you?
So? I'm the opposite. I don't think Michigan. I don't think Michigan State scores more than 10 points against Michigan. I think Michigan will literally run it down Michigan State's throat to the point in which there will
clashing
be tears.
Selections.
There will be tears flowing down the rivers of East Lansing. So I'm again this week. I'm giving you guys free money again. Michigan covers. Iowa covers, Ohio State covers, Minnesota covers, Illinois covers. Bang! There you go. I actually
hit it last week.
I did hit it last week. I believe so.
Every single one,
every single game. So I will go back. You can go back again and check. I think I did hit every single one.
I think you missed on Maryland and Wisconsin, if my memory serves me right. But you went over 500. I think you had Maryland covering against Northwestern. That was a 7-point win, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then you had Wisconsin. You had Purdue knocking off Wisconsin, and Wisconsin somehow won that game.
No, I had Wisconsin beating.
You had Wisconsin. Okay, so then you went 4-1. All right, sounds good. Which
pretty good.
Either way, above 500. That's what you're going for. The one I disagree with you there, Matt, is I think Nebraska covers 7 at home against Illinois in Lincoln. We know how that crowd is. 3:30 kick. Illinois is a good defense, but Nebraska.
Illinois is good.
Nebraska's got a lot.
And IU
a little, you know.
Yeah, IU should not have won that game.
But they did, right? I mean, this is kind of the point, though, right? It's the point. Like,
they did.
If you don't give up 24 straight points, you have a shot. Right? Indiana, as crappy as that game was on Saturday, Indiana lost by 7.
Or if you score points at all, you have a shot.
What a revelation!
Yeah, this is crazy. I know.
Unbelievable.
Everybody's like, here's
they scored 24 podcast.
Points. I know. Everybody hears they scored 24 straight points in a row, and it's like, oh, the defense sucked. They're like, well, the offense couldn't fuck. I'm not gonna curse. I'm not gonna freaking. The offense freaking couldn't score either. So it's not the defense's fault. They have to play 75% of the game because let's go 3 and out in 0.2 seconds.
Crazy. So anyway, that's what we think. Yeah, I got Nebraska covering 7. We'll see how all these games play out. Frankly,
one podcast without cursing. Let's go.
Looking forward to all 5 of these games. A full college football weekend without Indiana is medicine to I think a lot of and frankly, all football teams in Indiana are going through something right now. Shout out Sam Ellinger. Closing thoughts, guys, as we wrap up on this Monday night. Lots to go through. Charlie, I'll give it to you first. Wrapping up here, IU basketball exhibition game Saturday. Football team had a bit of a crossroads here.
Yeah, I think that IU basketball just needs to come out and show the world what they've been holding back. And actually, you know what? Never mind. No, they don't. I think that IU basketball needs to come out, play their game. I think that the freshmen need to get some playing time. I don't think they need to show anybody who they are yet. I definitely think they need to win. Yeah. That's obvious. They need to win. And if they don't win, I don't know.
It's fine. Doesn't
They
count.
just need to win.
Doesn't count.
IU basketball needs to win, and they need to.
If they
They need
lose,
to
Charlie,
show
they're
up.
gonna do the Men in Black, like you're gonna wipe all of our brains.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna
Literally.
lose my mind if they lose.
So IU basketball needs to win, and I want to see some young players, some secondary, some different rotations come in. I don't want to see as much of the stars. I want to see some new players. IU football, I think, needs to reevaluate a lot in terms of how they drive down the field. Specifically, I think that's number one. Maybe that no huddle isn't working after 5 games losing in a row. You would think, oh, maybe 6 games they'll start paying attention, but let's hope that it's 5 games. So I think IU football needs to focus on the offense and look at the big picture. How are they going to get to 6 wins? I don't know if there's an answer for this season, but there's definitely an argument for the next couple of seasons making their way. So, yeah.
Matt, how about you?
Look, this football team hasn't given me a lot of hope. But boys, this basketball team gave me a lot of hope. So there's a lot of pressure on this basketball team. I'm just putting this out there for all the IU sports fans in the world, because this football team has taken all the hope that we had possible for this football team, and I didn't have a lot, but they took all of it and threw it in a dumpster and lit it.
It's like
on
negative
fire.
because they've added a little as the games have gone on. They've added a little.
Yeah, it's like I'd rather them go down 14-0 to start the game. I can go drinking. It's fine.
That's what happened against Cincinnati, but then Indiana showed up in the second half.
But then they came back, just roll over and die. Please. Look, basketball, I'm very happy, very excited. I can't wait. I literally can't wait. I have a timer on my phone counting down the hours until I get to go watch the IU basketball game. I am excited. Football, I'm glad they have the weekend off. That's all I'm saying.
Indiana has a lot to look forward to as far as this men's basketball team and women's basketball team are concerned. My final thought is don't be surprised if someone other than Connor Bazelak is starting against Penn State in a couple Saturdays. Just keep that in mind. That about wraps it up for our 269th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.